All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So, just a gentle reminder, I want to run you through once again what's happening today at our SG Innovate New Frontier. So, we do have many concurrent events going on. It's a drop in, drop out. So, if you see a topic that you like, come on in. If you see this is the main plenary in the auditorium. If there's a topic that you like, feel free to drop on there as well. Visit our exhibitors. You can visit our jobs area as well. We've got jobs pavilion there. So, go and if you're looking for a job, if you're looking to apply for the Power X traineeships, please feel free to go on there to find out a little bit more as well. All right. So feel free anytime, interact all throughout the session today because it will get you points in our engage and win segment, where at the end of the day, 3 of you lucky winners will walk home with some very cool prizes. Okay, we got a staycation to give away, we got a very nice earpiece to give away, and we also have a wireless device wearable to give away as well. So I want to encourage all of you to do as many things as you can through our website. And before you leave our event, remember to take the quiz. This quiz on the menu bar to get you the most number of points available. All right. So anyway, welcome down, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our next segment. So, for me personally, I used to run a tech startup many, many years ago. So I really can understand this next topic that our speakers are going to be talking about. But our panelists, they are really such established people in their own fields. Once you hear the names, you'll be impressed. So, the team has really put in a lot of hard work to put this panel together. But first, what is this session for? Now, if you are a budding entrepreneur looking to create your own startup, now you know that maybe attracting talents and retaining them is also one of the key challenges that many startups face. All right, so we have a panel now that will share their thoughts on how they have shaped their policies to retain the best talent to grow your or their organizations. Now, as you know, Mark Zuckerberg, when he was scaling up Facebook, he couldn't do it on his own. He needed a very capable team with him. Right. So how do you do it? Right. Our panelists will attempt to dissect that question. But here's a hint: apart from monetary benefits, there are other important factors at play as well, such as career progression, employee engagement. So we have a very dynamic panel for our discussion. Startup 101: balancing money and talent. And they come from various startups and MNCs. Our panel of speakers include Bridget Shao, Head of Talent, Southeast Asia, ThoughtWorks; Christabel Quack, Chief Technology Officer and Co-founder, Bolt Global; Dr. Gyok Ling Tan, CEO, IDA Technologies; Lucas Nyo, Co-founder, Carousel; and Ravi Nipani, Associate Partner, Human Capital Solutions, APAC and MEA, Aon. And moderating this session will be Roger Olofsson, CEO of Olofsson and Company. But first, here to kick off this session, I'd first like to invite our partner Aon to share some fresh insights on compensation and benefit strategies that you can use in your startup, or if you want to learn more about compensation and benefit strategies, over to Ravi.
Thank you so much. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Ravi Nipani here. I lead the private market practice for Aon in Asia Pac, Middle East, and Africa. So last year, Aon and SG Innovate kind of came together to collaborate to launch probably one of the biggest compensation surveys for the startup ecosystem, not only in Singapore, but also to a broader Southeast Asia. So over the next few minutes, what I hope to share with you is certain insights from that study, which is now being released to all our participants. So these studies saw about 80 plus odd startups participate just in Singapore alone, which I thought was a great first step because of a lack of having anything that exists in the market. I think this was a first good step, and that we've had about 6 odd job functions that we could kind of give you very good insights on. So what I will try and do over the next few minutes is to kind of burst a few myths that exist, or probably not, depending on what the insights of that survey and what companies have been telling us, right? So one of the first things that I always get when I work with founders or with startups is we are not able to attract talent from the big firms because we don't have the kind of pockets to pay that cash. Is that really always true? And from the survey, when we looked at it, you would see that the base salary that we're talking about is not vastly different between a broader tech versus a startup, and if I look at the broader general industry in Singapore as a whole, you would see at the management level, the startups are fairly competitive, and so are at the individual contributor levels. There's not too much to write home about, right? Of course, given that this is an aggregated number that we're looking at, if we break it down further between the organizations, of course, there would be those nuances. But the whole idea of showing you this was to kind of give you that it's not always the picture where it says that the big firms are the best paymasters in terms of the base salary, right? Now, coming to the second component, which I always find very, very exciting, is because base salary is always a given, plus or minus, candidates when you're trying to attract them. That's a conversation that kind of happens based on the different data points that you want to look at. You would see on this, it's the bonus where the differentiation is starting to come in, right? This is where the performance based payouts start to happen. And again, these are predominantly cash that we're talking about here. If you would see on the right side of the screen, there's 20% that's kind of given out as a bonus, 20% of the base salary, which is fairly aggressive in the startup ecosystem. And I would say that this has also kind of been relooked at by the startups during the COVID era, because a lot of startups wanted to be way careful with the cash situation that they've kind of operated. And if I break this down further of this 20%, then within the organizations, you would see these are probably more aggressive on the management and the executive levels within the startups, whereas at the lower end of the organization, you would find that the numbers are not as aggressive. On the other side, if I look at the broader or the large established names, they have fairly aggressive bonus pools across levels. So that's again an area that startups could kind of actually leverage on, depending on who you're talking to and at what level, right? The other big question when you talk about startup and compensation, it's almost synonymous to saying equity, because there have just been so many successful stories that have the world seen from Silicon Valley. And the question that I get asked is, are the Asian startups, or let's localize it to Singapore specifically, are they good on equity, right? So very, very typically in the US, equity is given almost in 100% of the hires that startups do in the Valley, right? Or 100% of the organizations will provide equity to whether it's your executive leadership team, your managerial, or even your professional individual contributors, right? And 90% of these firms also provide to support roles at a broader cross section of the organization by itself, which means that it doesn't matter whether you're a technical role that's contributing towards the broader runway of the organization, or you're in a support role, you would still get equity. When I localize it to our closer to home, I see that Singapore, over 90% of the organizations have equity in some form or the other, but it's very, very limited to probably the top 3 or 4 levels within the organization. It's not a widespread vehicle that founders use to kind of attract and retain the talent. That's again an area that we will probably talk about later during the panel discussion. And to give you another aspect on the equity, if you see on the management side, the equity ownership within startups, there's not too much of a difference that's happening between the US startups vis-a-vis how founders are looking at it in Singapore. However, the biggest difference is coming when you look at the professionals entry levels. You would see that in the Valley, you still have a sizable chunk that people get to own the skin in the games as they speak. Whereas in Singapore, you really don't have. The numbers were just so negligible that we just thought it was as good as not representing it there, right? Without taking any further time away from the panel discussion, we just thought this would be a good way to just set the context. Like I said, the last year's report is out and this year's survey is already launched. So if you think you want to find out more about what's happening in the startup or you want to participate in it, and it's free of cost, so feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is right here. With this, I would kind of pass the mic back to Roger. Roger, over to you. Roger, you're on mute.
Thank you, Ravi. And thank you so much for sharing such interesting, insightful information with us from your survey today, which sets it up really nice for the panel. My name is Roger Olofsson, and I'm honored to have been asked to moderate today's panel. This is such an impressive and accomplished panel that we have with us today, each with a wealth of experience in startups and in growth and in talent. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Olofsson & Company. We work with founders and CEOs of startups, scale-ups, and VCs to help startups to maximize growth and success through providing them with innovative talent solutions. With over 20 years of experience in the talent space in tech and startups in Singapore, we're incredibly passionate about talent and its impact on startup success. And I must say, I'm so very much looking forward to hearing the perspectives today from our panel, exploring the success and failures of attracting the right talent. We will focus on sourcing, securing, motivating and locking in talent in a market which I believe has a highly restricted talent pool today and with significant talent competition. I expect us to have a vibrant discussion on the use of creative compensation packages relevant to startups and fast growth firms. And I'm sure the panel will share insights with us on many other ways to attract, grow, and retain talent apart from just the remuneration side of it. And we will also try to leave some time towards the end of this session to answer questions from the audience. So now, let's get moving. Many people chase a brand for their career and CV. How can a startup compete with the major corporates and indeed unicorn players? What can you do differently? Are there other factors except brand and compensation that can be attractive for talent out there? Crystal, as a founder of a relatively new startup with a bold and audacious mission, it would be great to hear your experience and your take on this.
Hey, hello, hi guys. Thank you so much, Roger, for the kind introduction as well. So Bolt is actually an interactive media ecosystem that is powered by the blockchain, and we have decentralized finance services running on it. And we're relatively new to the startup game. I mean, we started in 2017, and our audacious mission has to be inspiring enough to sort of pull people, away from the likes of established, tech companies, as Roger, we've been talking about yesterday, right? From the likes of ByteDance and Alibaba into relatively small but interesting company with an audacious mission to bring creative and financial freedom to users, streamers, and brands. Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey for us for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Crystal. And Lucas, I was really interested in getting your thoughts on this as well. You've been around from day one, and what has your experience been like, and how has it changed throughout this 9-year journey you've been on?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, your question on how do we attract talent at the start of our founding journey, right? So back in 2012, when we started Carousel, we started with 3 of us, but very quickly we realized that, hey, we don't have all the skill sets that we need, right, to scale our service in tech, in marketing, and so on. So we very quickly realized that we need to build around a team. But at the time, we were a young startup. So I think as a young startup, it's really important to find people that align with your mission, with your vision, people that are excited about coming on board to help us to solve the problem together, right? So initially, on our first 10 early employees, really equity was, as Ravi mentioned, one of the levers that we use. So our early employees, we treat them as founders, right? Basically, they are our founding team. They are there from the early days, help us to build it up. And as the company scales, so they were rewarded with equity compensation as well. And also it's important to find people that are passionate and are smart, right? So a lot of our early hires actually, they are actually interns. They are fresh out of school, right? They come on this journey with us, they learn with us, and they scale with us, right? A lot of them now are actually leading teams as well as they grow with the company.
That Lucas, that's very interesting. And so do you mean to say then, would it be the case then that, you know, if I look at these interns, for example, that started fresh, or even maybe before they finished the degree with you and now being in very senior positions, would they potentially have had an even richer career progression than what you would be expecting in a corporate environment, if you like? What do you think, Lucas?
Yeah, I would say it's different, right? In a sense, it's a different kind of experience that you get from corporate versus startup. I'll say that a lot of the interns, when they join us, we're a startup, we have limited number of people, but there's a lot to do. So a lot of times they have to take on things that they may not have been prepared on, right? I think that's also how they learn as well. They kind of get into the situation. This is the first time, and then they learn, they solve the problem, and then they grow from there, right? So I would say startup is like a compressed time frame, right? Like you learn so much in the first 3 years compared to what you can learn from maybe joining a corporate, for example. So it's kind of a different experience there.
That's right. Very true, Lucas. And yeah, I think in terms of the compressed time, Dr. Gyok Leng, I think we spoke about that, and you were referencing dog years as well in one of our conversations. I thought it would be really interesting to hear what your thoughts are on being able to attract top talent in such a competitive environment, given also that you are building a startup in maybe one of the most competitive, talent short areas of the market, AI and machine learning.
Maybe a bit about my background. Actually, before I do this startup, I worked for multinationals. I worked for government. I was in government for 15 years. So I've seen what multinationals look like. I've seen what a government looks like. And I also now see what startup look like, right? I think it would be a mistake to try and think that, okay, somebody come up, they are all fungible, you know, like they're all same kind of job. The person who joins a startup has to be pretty clear why he wants to join a startup. Okay, it's not just another job, right? I think, when you join a startup, the expectations of what you need to do when you're in a startup actually is very, very different compared to what you do if you are, say, in a much larger organization. So large organizations are a lot more structured. Processes are all in place, a lot of systems. If you join a startup, then actually a lot of it's investment. Your job description or job role is a lot more varied. And then, we'll talk about how do we attract people to come and join a startup. I think also at the starting point, you're not talking about a huge number of people. Where at the very start, you are talking about relatively small group of people that form the core, right? And I think there's also talk about compensation and how much one pays and so on. It really depends on the phase you are in, right? In the initial phase, you could be bootstrapped. So the first few people as the founders probably don't get paid anything, right? You're purely bootstrapped. So the people come because they want to come, not because of money. Even at the first wave of hires, what we say to people is, I can offer you a competitive salary, but I will never be able to offer you the best salary, right? No startup can afford to offer the best salary until perhaps the startup reach a certain phase and you're successful. You get to a point where you're in a scale-up phase and raise $100 million and so on. Right, you're one of those unicorn startup. Then of course you can offer a very competitive salary. But at the very, very start, there's absolutely no way any startup can offer a salary that really will be able to beat our MNCs or our government. And you have to sell them a dream, right? You have to sell them a dream that if you join the startup, you're on a journey with this company. And this company, if you make it really successful, the amount of experience you get, the training, exposure, it's worth much more than money, right? That's the dream you sell them.
I like that, Gyok Leng, very much in terms of selling the dream, and I think that's such an important part, and also that there is alignment, that the dream, both with the mission of the startup, what the startup is trying to change in the world to the better, and that resonates with the talent that you're speaking to. Because if that does that, then it's much more likely that they're going to be excited about it and jump onto this journey, creating a dream together and realizing this dream. And given that all of those intrinsic values or less not so concrete values, if you like, and the culture and the mission and the underpinning values under it can be such a key differentiator in terms of attracting top talent, or in this war for talent. I thought you'd be interested to explore how important it is that hiring managers, as you start to scale a little bit, how important is it that hiring managers know how to promote your values, your culture, your key employee value proposition, if you like, and what measures that you can take to ensure consistency in the candidate experience. And Bridget, it would be really interesting to hear some of your thoughts on that based on all the talent attraction and retention programs that you've been involved in implementing, often in a very agile fashion in ThoughtWorks.
Okay, thanks, Roger. And then, hi, everyone. I'm Bridget from ThoughtWorks. So totally agree with the rest of the panel. Actually, in IT industry, it's a very fast-paced and super competitive talent market. So I'm very blessed that I joined a company, organization which invented the Agile methodology, so that we are able to practice Agile in our internal operating. So, and then I personally I joined ThoughtWorks for almost 8 years. I grew from a junior recruiter. So across the 8 years, I worked for 4 countries, multiple, different cities. So I would say if you want to attract the talent when you start your business, there's a pattern will be interesting to use and try. Firstly, if you're a business owner, I think the talent market was a good research along with your business strategy. For instance, if you are targeting 2 data scientists in the local talent market, how would the market look like? In total, for instance, we only have 5, and then you are targeting 2. That would be more even challenging, right? And then based on that, we might need to do some change, and then to small step change, and then make the results even better. And then along the way, we see actually for talent market, you need to know who are the target audience. Personally, I'm a millennial, and then we also have Gen Z, right? So for different generation, different type of candidates, technical people, business people, we might come out different strategy of attract them, to hear from them what they are looking for. Some people might, be more interested in the technical excellence. Some candidates might be more interested in good culture because they might have bad experiences. Some people might just, want to have some financial benefits due to this and that reasons. So I guess in a way is to do more research and then to know your target audience, and then based on that to create a talent strategy along with your business needs.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bridget, for sharing that experience with us. And I think a lot of those things can be very much applicable to the to a smaller, earlier stage startup environment. And I think it is in many ways very good news that there are many other factors than just cash that attracts the right people to the right organization. And but however, sort of coming back to those sort of those more hard numbers, if you like, I would be interested in getting some of your perspectives on how important equity is as a motivator to join, and should you give it at an offer stage? Some startups give it at a later stage. Some give it to everyone, and some give it only for key positions, or perhaps should you give it to employees that value equity, and then how do you actually find that out? Dr. Georg Leng, do you have any thoughts on that side?
Of course, what the quantum you give depends on the relative contribution and the importance of the contribution of the individual. It's good to try and give to everybody, but that's always not enough to give, right? So there's usually just a certain quantity in the ESOS pool, and you have to be actually quite mindful that you do not deplete your ESOS pool too fast, right? Because you got talent you want to retain, and if you give some ESOS, it doesn't mean you give it all at one shot. You may be giving progressively yearly basis, and the new people that are coming in. So you have to take into account the runway you need to keep. So as a result, it's highly likely that not every single person will have it, but a significant group of people who are contributed have it, and then the key people will have more, all right? And then usually it vested over a number of years. I think that's also not unusual. So you have to sort of work a number of years, maybe 3 years or whatever, and you vest over time, right? So it's a way to hold people as well. And so people also ride the journey with you, right? Yeah.
That's right. Thanks, Georg Leng. And that becomes, so it also becomes a very, very important retention tool, and not just an attraction tool, if you like. And Ravi, in terms of your research that you shared some of the key findings on for us here, would be interested to hear you elaborate a little bit on the importance of equity and whether you've seen any correlation between success, growth, and whether startups are giving out equity or not. And also interested to hear your reflections on the difference between Singapore or Southeast Asia versus Silicon Valley, which is still relatively large in terms of the view on equity, and whether that is then just that we're culturally different here and it might never necessarily be the same, or whether it is that Silicon Valley is a more mature startup environment, and that's the sort of key reasons. But please, over to you, Ravi.
Sure, Roger. So I would at the onset kind of agree with what Dr. Georg Leng was just mentioning. There's just multiple factors that come into play before deciding how equity needs to be rolled out within an organization, right? It's a great tool that helps you save on your cash, but at the same time get the skin in the game of the people that you're trying to bring on board. Like Lucas touched upon earlier, saying when they were first starting off, it was very critical that they share a piece of what they were looking to create with everybody, so that there is a sense of ownership rather than just being an employee per se, right? And you kind of get aligned to the mission and vision of what the organization is looking to do. Yes, culturally, I think Asia is currently very different from how the Silicon Valley operates. But if I also go back in time and see how the other pay components have kind of evolved, even performance-based pay of bonus was not something that was very popular till about 15, 20 years back. But in the US, that was still something that was applicable even 30 years back, right? So that's kind of become an integral. So with COVID, I've seen, because we do a lot of work with founders across the region, we've seen a lot more conversations and a lot more work that we're doing around equity now, because organizations are kind of realizing that it's a great tool to kind of use to not only attract, but also retain critical employees. But how you will do it is all boils down to the philosophy of the organization, where they are in their growth trajectory, what's the plan for the future, what are they looking for, and then some of these things play big aspects. So in the Valley, almost 100% of the organizations give equity. Without equity, nobody even has a conversation. In Asia, that is starting to change, where now companies are talking about not just the leadership, but also mid-level and the lower level critical jobs. They're willing to give the equity as well.
Thanks, Ravi. So it's interesting to hear that there seems to be there's definitely a trend that we're seeing, and towards maybe a more similar type of view of on equity as we have seen over the years in Silicon Valley. Crystal, not putting you on the spot here, or maybe with the risk of doing that a little bit, what's your kind of strategy and sort of plans for your business in terms of utilizing equity as one of the key components to drive attraction, retention, success, and growth?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion, because we have a bit of the double-edged sword, and I would say in many cases a privilege of building our product and our services on the blockchain. So besides the equity portion where we have a share vesting program, an equity vesting program for some of our key and early founding members and leadership team, what we also do have is our own token-based treasury. And some of our employees actually elect to receive their salaries and not just their overall token compensation in our own digital currency. So we have a couple of employees that actually don't receive their salaries in SGD, but in tokens. And some of them elect to receive their bonuses or even future, I would say, percentage of our treasury in our tokens as well. So it's an interesting one for us. And we do that only on a case-by-case basis. But, if a couple of our team members want to, receive their monthly, salaries from our tokens, we're more than happy to do so. So I think it's an interesting one for us because the tokens and the blockchain has allowed us to give a form of liquidity, not just for our team, but also for our overall community of users, streamers, and brands. And it's an interesting one because this liquidity, is built on the network effect of how popular or how widely adopted our own platform is. So our own internal team, our founding team, they're able to correlate that growth, that network effect, that progress that we've made, building on our products day by day into the price appreciation of our own token. So actually, we've had a few more people within our own teams that have, because of the price movements and the price appreciation, they're like, oh, can we get our salaries now in the token versus in SGD? So I think it's a brave new world, and it's something that we're also trying to figure out. But we're not just the only company that's doing so. I have a couple of friends in the blockchain space who are building their own ecosystems, on the blockchain. They're actually doing, I think there's one or two companies that I know of. I would say 90% of their workforce is actually electing to receive their overall compensation, their basic salary, their bonuses, all in digital currency. Yeah.
That's we're moving into a very exciting new world, aren't we? Yeah? And
yes,
we start to see that people are interested in receiving their salaries even in tokens and in cryptocurrency. That's amazing. And that's and I think and I can see that the benefit in terms of these people when they are building out the product, and they can see the impact it has in the market, and then the benefit that they're also getting. It's like Lucas mentioned as well earlier, that it's you're creating an owner feeling amongst those key people as well.
Yeah,
that's
for sure. I think that, just to add on to that point, you're absolutely right. That sense of ownership and that pride when you can see the network effect of I would say a company's asset grow in time, and you electing to receive your compensation in that asset is a very powerful one. And I think it really unites the team together. Yeah. Yeah,
that's so true. So true. And Lucas, in terms of when you were giving out, when you guys were giving out equity in Carousel and or in the early days as well, and maybe mid days, did you then one, have you found that that's been a key contributor to the success that you have achieved? Of course, not the only reason, but maybe one factor. And two, that question about whether the different people value equity differently. How have you dealt with that, in a practical sense?
For us, we believe that everyone, we wanted to align everyone's interests, right? So for us, even today, if let's say you're an engineer or you're a marketing specialist that joins us, we will give equity as well. Of course, the scale is different, right? In the early days, I think it's a risk-reward kind of trade-off. In the early days, you're taking on more risk with the company. So even early employees, if you're in a junior position, you deserve and you get a bigger portion of equity. And then as you scale, you started to hire your senior execs. Again, right, senior execs that they could have joined big companies, but they kind of take on a chance to join your startup. So those execs also, we do reward them with bigger equity. And today we have a standard kind of, for example, it's based on your yearly salary, right? So you get an equivalent amount of equity based on your yearly salary. So in a sense, it helps to scale at a different stage of the company. Of course, today we make sure that the basic are taken care of, right? We want to be competitive in the basic salary, in the bonus, but beyond kind of taking care of the hygiene, basic stuff, we also want to align interests with our employees as well. So by having some equity, if you're in a senior position, more equity, this will actually help that. And as mentioned, we do help to educate because there are questions, right? Like what does it mean? How does it work? Sometimes people may not value because they don't understand how it works, right? So we do explain to every new employees how does vesting work, right? The standard 4-year vesting, 1-year cliff. How does it work? How do you get unlocked? And then we also make it quite transparent, right? In a sense, you have a system where you can actually log in to see how many equity you own and so on, right? So we want to create that alignment in that sense.
Yeah, no, I think that is incredibly important to to get the right balance and the right alignment as well. And interesting to hear the changes as well as you're growing as a company and the different levels of people you're taking in at different levels. Really useful and good information. And Georg Leng, in terms of that side on the equity strategy, anything that you wanted to add to that, or quite comfortable with what we've covered so far?
Very comparable. I think at the end of the day, I think the people who join startups are a little bit self-selective as well, right? You need to have a sense of adventure. If you want that wants a 9-to-5 job, who wants a stability, who wants sort of everything to be well-defined for you, then please don't come and join a startup. You're not suitable, right? You get shocked, right?
Yes.
So the people who come, and if you find a good fit, you have the right mindset. And then it's really a very exciting journey, and we all hope we get to the end. And you join a startup for the big win, right? And in a sense, you're taking a higher level of risk, but you join for the adventure, right? It's not about, in my mind, a person doesn't join a startup because of the compensation, the direct compensation.
I think you're very right, Georg Leng, and I think it is I think it's almost a little bit of a litmus test. I think in many of the conversations as an early stage startup, whether if people are putting a certain salary level as one of the key concerns, then you might actually be better off rounding off that conversation sooner rather than later. I think there need to be many other reasons before salary for someone to join a startup.
It has to be a reasonable salary, right? It has to be really competitive, but it cannot be the best salary, right? It's simply no way. A startup cannot afford it, right?
Yeah, certainly not in an early stage. And I think we're referring, of course, now to startups as in, the very bootstrapped and seed stage, and perhaps even just at the Series A. Of course, when you go further, then it changes a lot. And I was thinking, Ravi, do you think that that data was very interesting that you showed us? I was just keen to hear from you in terms of that sort of 80+ startup selection that has been part of the survey. What's the distribution there between very early stage startups, at bootstrap seed stage, compared to or vis-a-vis Series C, D, and beyond, perhaps?
I would. So I think the survey had a good mix of. I would say about 30% would be bootstrap to Series A kind of, and then about another 30% would be Series B, Series C. There was not too many unicorns in there. So it was kind of a good distribution of organizations that are in a fairly early stage. But at the same time, we also wanted to make sure that we have a complete representation because the talent pool can pretty much come from anywhere, right? For startups as well. Like my panelists have been discussing that people come here for the adventure, not so much about the money. But at the same time, there are bills that they have to pay. So your compensation has to be, competitive, so that at least there's those basic bills that are getting paid. But of course, so the survey kind of gave you a representation of all kinds of startups in there, but not too many which are massive and unicorns.
Yeah, got you. That's so it's a pretty good distribution, and very interesting findings actually, because I would have thought that the difference would be wider than what the data shows. So, but having said that, again, going broader than just dollars and cents compensation, and going back to other things that can be done to build or to reward people and to make it worthwhile for people to be in the organization. Let's look at the upskilling, job training, in-house training, and what can be done in that space, and whether that's valuable or not, for talent, both as an attraction as well as a retention tool. Bridget, even though ThoughtWorks today is a very large organization, 8,000 people, and a leader, or actually really the founder and inventor of the Agile methodology, I would say. But you've used Agile much further than just to develop software. And it would be interesting to get your thoughts on some of the training, upskilling methods or processes that you guys are using that could also potentially be applicable in a startup scenario.
Thanks, Roger. Yeah, so actually, now we are more mature. But when I started in ThoughtWorks, we are kind of the startup type of size. So I would say I totally agree with Dr. Tan that compensation will be not the only one factor that people join startups. They invest their time, their youth to try new things, to be an adventure, to see if they can do things differently. So from a human capital angle, I would say candidate experience or employees experience is super crucial. The culture and the foundation and the people actually. So it's all about people. The candidate experience will start the first call they receive from the recruiter. Along the way, they receive the offer and then join the company. And then the employee experience will start from day one. So how organization, business owner or leader or even the HR can make your people feel they made the right choice. They made they reject the other offers and then choose you will be the best life choice for themselves. So I would say building a good foundation will be super crucial for long run. And then along from that, of course, we need some very creative compensation structure to attract candidates and to provide interesting training and then uplifting the opportunities. Actually, I read some researches when we had the team discussion because internally we have very nice learning environment in Source and my team as well. So my teammates provide some researchers to me, which I learned from them as well, that more than 70% candidates will choose a company and then reject other offers based on the candidate experiences. And then more than at least 60% of the candidates who stay more than 3 years in an organization, most probably will be the culture and the growth opportunity. So as a business owner, how we can lead by example to create a safe environment, trust environment for people to, show their voice and then to ask what they expected from the organization. And then based on that, we design, we do customization design actually for the employee based on their expectation. So that would be something that we are practicing in Source in a business agility way. I would say for now, it's a super changeable industry, and then we might need to do some interesting changes for us as well.
So fantastic. And did you say 60%? 60% of employees that stayed long term were staying because of culture and professional development?
Yes.
That is a big number, that shows how important that is. And again, softer components that have a little bit less to do than just the sort of cash side of things. And Dr. Georg Pleng, would you want to add thoughts to that? Your thoughts to that?
Right. So you asked a question earlier. How do we attract AI talent? And I know it's such a competitive space and so on. We tell people who come to join us that if you want to get a variety of experience and a depth of experience, you will not get it anywhere else, right? And the reason is this. In the initial years when we started, it's really scary, right? You walk into a very large bank or insurance company, and these are people who are in the business for, many, many years, and they know their business. You go in there and you try and tell them, I can show you how to do something better than what you can do, right? That is really something, right? And the question is, why can we do it? The reason we can do it is because our experience is a lot wider, right? I work with people, with companies in places like Singapore where the ecosystem is very mature, data system is very complete, very clean, very extensive, all the way to places like Indonesia, Thailand, India, where actually the systems are a lot less mature. Data's all over the place, is very untidy, and different systems, right? So having worked in a variety of places, then actually your knowledge about how to handle different things that happen in the ecosystem, even though we are a much younger company, but our range of experience, you get really an accelerated kind of learning, right? So whereas the guys who are in a very large bank who's been there for 5 years, they knows how to do something well for 5 years, right? But in that 5 months that we have, you probably work across 10 different banks and see 10 different kind of systems, right? So after a while, the experience is something you cannot get anywhere else, right? That's how we attract people.
Fantastic. That is that's very interesting, and again shows the importance of all these other factors than all the other things that we can do to bring value to people and create careers and stickiness, if you like. So that's fantastic. Actually, what I would like to just I would like to jump on to one of the questions here from the audience as well, and through your experience, and I would like to open it up to any one of you guys on the panel. So if through your experience, what do you, just hold on a second here, I have a little bit of minor technical challenge. Through your experiences, what do you think are the primary motivating factors for talent to join startups? Does culture play an important role here? Who would like to? We have to answer it to some extent, but maybe elaborate on it. Anyone wants to jump in?
So I can take a first shot at it, Roger, since we work with a lot of startups as well.
Excellent.
I think culture plays one of probably the most important aspects of it. And I would like to quote Peter Drucker here: is culture will eat strategy for breakfast any day, right? It's as simple as it, because when people come in, they're coming in with a lot of unknowns, right? If this organization is going to make it through, are they going to be able to pay their bills in a few months' time, or the financing will run out, and so on. But even Bridget was just mentioning this earlier, people come in for the experience, and culture is where it all starts, right? People come, stay there when they believe in a lot of stuff. They need to have fun. Of course, they're coming here for an experience that's very different from what they would get in a large organization. But culture is where it will start driving. And I think you can sense a lot of it the moment a candidate walks through that door. There is indications of those cultures that they start seeing subtly, in a way, how teams are interacting, how people are even scheduling the interviews, or how people are going to have those conversations. So I think, in my opinion, what I've seen successful startups operate, I think culture plays a very, very integral and a central theme for a lot of the successes.
Yeah, totally agree with Ravi. Sorry.
Yes,
yeah.
Please, Bridget.
Yeah, I would say, and also on top of it, backstroke case for your employee with the interaction with the people would be something really interesting to try. For example, if your managers or your teammates to go for an interview to meet people, in the industry, how would your interaction with them? How would they introduce your company to them? And then how see the face they are super proud of, joining this company will be actually the best showcase and then the best branding.
That's very true. Yes, and and coming back to Ravi as well. Thanks, Bridget and Ravi. I think that is one of my favorite quotes, and I think it's very fascinating. Peter Drucker, who is technically the father of modern business strategy, then also turns around later and says that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And in some ways, I think Amazon and AWS is a great example of that, where they're investing so much time and resource and effort and energy into the 14 leadership principles, and everybody lives by them. And the focus is really on that, and then they build strategy and structure around that based on the situation and circumstances. And so it's great. We've gotten another question from the audience here that is in a less positive situation, but very important. When someone leaves the firm or wants to leave the firm, should you consider giving counteroffers? Why or why not? Lucas, we had a little bit of a conversation about that a few days ago. What's your thoughts on counteroffers?
Yeah, so usually we try to classify into, is it a regrettable or non-regrettable, right? So regrettable could be, this is obviously a star player in your company, and it really impact your business. If this person leaves, in that situation, definitely you should. We will go all out, right, to retain the talent, right? It doesn't always have to be in monetary form, right? That's one factor, but it could also be what kind of career progression this person is looking for, right? Can the organization create space for that? Can we help the person grow into what he or she wants to become? Can it be in the form of equity, for example? So there are various ways that we can put together to do that, right? Of course, if it's non-regrettable, we also want to. I think ultimately it's also a fit, right? We want people to work in a company that fits them, and in that situation, we will also make sure that we help them to find other opportunities that they can grow in their ways, right? Sometimes it's just an alignment that doesn't mean you have to always retain everyone, but if there's good alignment, is a star player, I think it's important to do that.
That's right. So you think it is very much it's a situational kind of thing. So it really depends on the reasons why a person wants to leave, and also the how important that person is to the organization. Can you hear me?
Yes, Roger,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Very good, very good. And that's interesting. In terms of counteroffers, anyone else have any thoughts on that side? Crystal, what's your?
I think for us it's been interesting, because I think Lucas definitely touched upon the interesting point. The star player on the team, right? Or whether it's a regrettable sort of exit that some people might look towards. And absolutely right. Money isn't just the only factor that would limit someone. I think fundamentally, this has happened to us as well. So, I normally have a chat with the support team member who would like to make an exit, and figure out, what actually would motivate them to stay. And more often than not, it's not about the money, it's about whether they can grow into different roles, what would their career progression be like. And in a very fast moving, I would say, deep tech space, or if you're in a tech company in itself, there's so many things that happen across, the spectrum of company could be, and the different pivots that you can take. And a lot of our hires in the teams so far, they need to have that growth mindset, and we hire for their growth mindset. So more often than not, when we have people like that on the team, they're always looking to do more. They're always looking to do stuff. They're always looking to learn and, unlearn to relearn, that sort of concept. So, we've had to shift people around, move people into different clusters, to work on different projects. And that's why, for us, we have a bit of that, I would say, innovation kind of cluster, where people can work on interesting ideas or interesting projects directly, with the leadership team in our company. And that's what we try to do for them. Yeah.
Fantastic. And once again, a lot of focus on culture and on building, long-term careers, long-term value, opportunities to grow, for the people that comes on board. That's great to hear. Thank you so much, Crystal. And it's starting to get the time to wrap this up. And it's been an extraordinary, insightful panel discussion. I'm certain much of what has been shared, your experience and learnings can be applied in our day-to-day experience launching, building, and scaling startups. Clearly, there are plenty of things that we can do to attract the right talent that you need to achieve startup success. And I think one of the things, the good news, I think that has come out as a theme from this, is that many of your attraction tools as an early stage startup are intrinsic to being a startup. And things like the breadth of experience that you can provide to people, flexibility, informal work environment, a very strong and family-orientated or very strong culture that feels like a family, perhaps, a shared vision in terms of the mission, factors that are not tied to cash and are not easy to replicate in established corporates. What's crystal clear, I think, from this conversation as well, is the importance of attracting the right talent to achieve success, and the grave consequences that faces startups that fails to do so. I would like to thank SG Innovate for hosting us today, and you, the audience, for taking time out from your busy Saturday to participate. And last but not least, our amazing panel. Without you all, this would not have been possible. I thank you very much.